Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, January 7th, and welcome to the second new TechStrong TV streaming broadcast for the year 2021. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, in for Alan Schimmel, and I am just so excited about today's broadcast. We have so many fascinating, interesting conversations for you lined up for today's broadcast. Starting out with a conversation that Alan has with Jim Brennan of Better Cloud. Better Cloud is all about SaaS ops, and in 2020, SaaS ops was definitely a hot topic of conversation as organizations moved to the cloud to address the work from home issues related to the pandemic. So it's certainly made for some interesting times for Better Cloud. So Jim and Jim Brennan, who was the Chief Product Officer at Better Cloud, and Alan have a talk about what's happening at Better Cloud, what they're hearing from their customer base. Lots of great stuff in that conversation. I am really looking forward to hearing that one. Alan then has a great conversation with Kit Merker from Noble9. He is now the COO at Noble9. And he and Alan actually just kind of chat about what his new position means for the company and what trends he is seeing in the space in general. So another interesting conversation, especially as we are now into 2021 and hopefully new year, new slate. So we'll check that one out today for sure. Then after that, we have an encore presentation of the CISO Talk that features Miranda Ritchie of IBM, and she joins Mitch Ashley and Alan Schimmel and Matt Newfield. They have a spirited discussion on healthcare and cyber in the COVID-19 world, so definitely still very relevant and still very much worth checking out. Okay, then I will have the news headlines, as always. And then I have a very, very fascinating conversation. I am so excited about this conversation that I had with a gentleman by the name of Mike Jones. For those of you who don't know, he is a security researcher and one of the co-founders of the ethical hacking group, Anonymous. And he and I talk about some of the origins of Anonymous. And we also talk a lot about ethical hacking in general and the recent SolarWinds hack and basically what that means for the industry at large. So, if you do nothing else today, definitely watch that interview because it's really worth checking out. After that, I talk with Chad Kenny of Clumio. Clumio is a really, really interesting company. They just came out with the what they say is the industry's first air-gapped ransomware protection service for AWS and VMware, as well as Microsoft 365. And chances are your company runs at least one of those services. So definitely check this one out. It's really interesting content, really interesting service. So definitely, give it a look. After that conversation, I tell you a little bit about some of the webinars we have coming up. And then Mitch Ashley comes on with his Analyst Corner in his Welcome 2021 segment. He's talking about new commentary about the inseparable connection between business and technology strategies in the age of digital transformation. It's part of a larger conversation that he is going to be having January 21st and 22nd at the Predict 2021 virtual summit that we have coming up here at Media Ops. Mark your calendar for that one. It's definitely going to be a good one. But if you want a teaser, check out Mitch's Analyst Corner. Okay, lots of great stuff on today's episode. So please stick around. We'll be right back after this commercial message. All right, everybody, let's get things kicked off with conversation between Alan Schimmel and Jim Brennan of Better Cloud.
This is Digital Anarchist. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another segment here for TechStrong TV. Our guest this segment is Jim Brennan. Jim is Chief Product Officer, CPO at Better Cloud. First of all, Jim, hey, man, welcome to TechStrong. Welcome back to TechStrong
Thank you, Alan.
TV.
So good to see you again.
Yep. So, Jim, the last time you were on, we were talking off camera, was like April. And that, that's what I call kind of the hair on fire period, where it was, a month after COVID kind of, set the world ablaze. And we were all wondering what the heck we're going to do and what does this mean and how are we going to respond? Are many of us going to have businesses? What do we do? And so here we are now. It's 2021. It's January. We're both still here, though, unfortunately, 300 and whatever it is, 30,000 Americans aren't, and more than that around the world. But yet, IT, digital transformation, cloud native, cyber, DevOps, these are all areas that have played a pivotal role in helping us survive. And when I say us, I don't mean you and I or even the people in the IT. I mean, population in general. Where would we be without, all of this digital transformation that's gone on? Jim, let's start off, though. I don't know if our audience remembers about Better Cloud. I think of Better Cloud, I think of SaaS Ops, and I've reused SaaS Ops as a term and brought it up many, many times over the last couple months. But if you don't mind, give us a little background.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. And thanks again for having me back. It's really good to be back here. And the world is still a little crazy, but we're on the right track, right? So
I hope so.
Hope so. Yeah, so back in April, you and I spoke quite a bit about SaaS Ops and what that is. SaaS Ops or SaaS operations being this, at the time, emerging practice of how do you discover and manage and secure all the different SaaS applications that your company and that your employees are using. And Better Cloud is at the forefront of that. We are a SaaS operations or SaaS Ops platform that allows our customers to do just that. And when we spoke in April, it was very much about, hey, SaaS, there's been this big uptick over the last 4 or 5 years in terms of how many SaaS applications are in use. And really what we've seen in the last 7 years is an acceleration of that in ways that even we were surprised to see. So a lot has happened in that respect, as you said. And in many respects, this practice of SaaS Ops is now even more important than it was back then.
Oh, it absolutely is. And it's also, I have this other theory that I've been espousing, Jim, and it's kind of like physics. In physics, there's a theory now that, you can't go back in time. Time has an arrow that points this way, and it's impossible. I think the same thing applies in technology. I don't think it's possible to go backwards, to unlearn what's learned, to put genies back in their bottles, right? So I think all of the progress that's been made in SaaS Ops and digital transformation as a result of what happened in 2020 is only going to set us up for continued moving forward in 2021 and beyond.
Absolutely.
Right?
A lot of folks talked about cloud first prior to this year. Some companies are cloud first, some are not. Now it's cloud only. And if you're not cloud only, you're being left behind. And that's just the reality of it, So now we believe that a lot of this change was essentially inevitable, but it got accelerated in a big way, for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely did. So let's talk a little bit about Better Cloud. Well, let's talk a little bit about SaaS Ops. I know you guys had a big kind of user conference, I assume virtual, like everyone else, right? Virtual user conference, and you released a study survey that you guys had done. Why don't we jump into there a little bit, Jim?
Sure. Yeah. So our user conference is called Altitude. We've been doing that every year now for about 6 years, and it was virtual, as you might imagine. Will likely be virtual again this year, and that's a topic for a whole nother conversation that I'd love to have with you. But at that event, just prior to that event, we released a report called the State of SaaS Ops, and it was essentially a survey of about 700 IT professionals at varying levels, C-levels down to practitioners on the ground. And it was on this topic. Tell us about your use of SaaS. Tell us about your challenges with massive SaaS adoption in these unprecedented times. And we found some really interesting things. One thing that I would love just to point out is probably the simplest fact, but one of the most compelling. We always ask these survey respondents, well, how many SaaS applications are in use in your company today? And we found on average that number was 80 different SaaS applications.
Wow.
For a given company.
I'm not surprised. You know what I'd be more surprised is how do they know it's 80? Right? I mean, you have so many. Who's even tracking them?
That's a great question. Well, and I will tell you, we know something about app discovery. That's part of what we do. And typically, not always, but typically, when an organization employs technology to actually see what applications are in use, typically what they find, it's about 2x what they thought. Now, so the 80, strong number, it's likely higher than that. And to put that in context, because we've been tracking this now for several years, just about 5 years ago, that number is about 10x what it was 5 years ago.
Wow.
So just massive acceleration.
Yeah, crazy. Yep. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised because, I mean, look, what are we here? We're 25, 30 people at MediaOps. But, we recently went through an exercise because we have a CTO and a CISO now, and we went through an exercise of, well, because what technology do we use, Jim, right? And we hired a full stack developer to help us because we really thought that's what's needed. And then he came to us after about 2 months and said, guys, I really don't have a lot to do here because everything we do is really just SaaS ops, right? Web-based SaaS. And so we're not developing code per se, or very little of it, right? We're using a lot of SaaS apps from our,
SaaS applications, right?
Well, the full stack engineer is no longer here. He's gone off to find a real job and get on with his life. And what we've come to realize is we just need people to do SaaS ops, right? To maintain these applications, make sure we're using them securely, that everyone's identity and access management kind of thing is right. Stuff like that. Maybe we need one app to talk to the other app sometimes,
sure. Yeah,
and
even onboarding and offboarding, even 25, 30 people, Alan. You think about the number of applications that you're supporting every time somebody joins or leaves or maybe changes teams. That process alone can be quite complicated. That was another thing we found in this report when we surveyed folks. We found that on average, it's taking about 8 hours to offboard a single employee across SaaS applications. 8 hours, and that's a manual process. You think about all the things that you could be doing with that time, much more strategic things as opposed to just manual, tedious efforts like that.
Yeah, no, that is. We, again, without giving too much information, we have a Google backend for like mail and apps and storage, let's say, right? And setting permissions on that and email aliases. And I know, because and I don't think we're unusual. I'm the CEO. I wind up doing a lot of it myself because I'm the one with the original logons to everything. I'm super admin for this stuff. And, I've now stopped doing that. I realize that's not the best use of my time. So I've made other people super admins and let them deal with it.
I'm glad to hear that.
I don't think it's unusual though.
It's not. It's definitely not unusual. And for a minute to bring it back to what you were talking about before with the discovery, the other really interesting thing in the last 7-8 months, I've had a lot of conversations with CEOs and CIOs where they tell me that in this new way of working, especially in those early days, April, May, when everybody was just trying to be productive or get productive, they were just spinning up new apps on their own, end user employees. And so now when we come out on the other side of this thing, which hopefully we're approaching that, now the issue is taking stock, taking inventory of what your new digital workplace looks like, because it's changed so much and it's changed so quickly. That's been a really interesting thing. And then coupled with that is this new way of thinking with a lot of CIOs, where they're not just wanting to know what applications are in use so they can stop the use of those apps. They want to know what apps are in use so that they know what are the most productive apps. How can they actually use that information to make their whole organization more productive, which is a really progressive way for IT to be thinking compared to years past, right?
Right. Yeah. Much less of the people who say no, which is a big problem out there. So, Jim, I got to bring it home, though. How does Better Cloud help people with these problems?
Sure. Yeah. So our reason for being is to make sure that companies can realize the full promise of SaaS. And what that means is you have to have a central way to discover and manage and secure all those different SaaS applications. So we ourselves are a SaaS platform. We're a SaaS application, and we integrate via APIs with numerous third-party SaaS applications. So whether it's Google or Slack or Dropbox, almost 70 different applications now we integrate with Alan. And we give you that centralized, almost single pane of glass to be able to apply policies and to be able to monitor activity and to be able to understand what's happening within your environment, all in the service of SaaS ops.
Got it. So you know what I find ironic? You integrate with 70 different SaaS applications. The average organization has 80.
There you go.
What do we do, right? I mean, so there's some work for a chief product officer.
Right. That's right. The work is never done in that respect.
Yeah. Let's find out what those other 10 are and make sure we integrate with them too. So, Jim, here we are, sit here in January now, though, and 2020 is in the rearview mirror. We've got the results from this survey. It was released at Altitude, right? Was that the name of your conference? Right. Yep. What does it mean for us going forward in 2021? What can we learn from the survey, from our 2020 experiences? How can we do better this year?
Yeah, it's a great question, Alan. Really, the net of it is you need tools, whether it's Better Cloud or something else, but we need tools because this is in many ways a scale problem. To your point, whether it's 80 today or 100, it's going to be 500 a year from now. And the reality is that IT teams, as a percentage of the overall organizations they support, are actually shrinking. And so they have to do more with less. And the only way that's going to happen is through things like automation and these types of platforms. And so SaaS ops, SaaS operations is really a necessity now. It might have been a nice to have a year or 2 years ago, but now because SaaS is at the forefront, it's at the center actually of every business interaction taking place. Literally, I had a CIO say that to me recently, that IT and SaaS is at the center of every single business interaction taking place. Given that, that's the fact, and that's going to be the fact. We have to have tools. We have to have ways of getting leverage to make sure that that doesn't come at a cost, because those things require management and they require security. And that's the lesson here, is that we need to embrace automation and we need to embrace these types of tools.
Yep. Jim, let me ask you from, having at prior companies I've started, I've run product and everything too. If we're going to take as a given that the number of SaaS applications and the variety of SaaS applications that organizations are using are going to continue to multiply almost exponentially. Rather than, to me, it's kind of a Muhammad comes to the mountain or the mountain goes to Muhammad kind of thing. Rather than doing, I'm going to call them one-offs, but rather than doing an integration with each application, shouldn't there be some sort of standards-based API or something that would let hundreds of applications integrate into Better Cloud?
Yeah, I love that idea, Alan. And there's some precedent. You've got things like SCIM, more for basic provisioning, deprovisioning.
Right.
I think there's definitely a need for that. Our approach is to build natively integrations for the most critical, you might say, the birthright applications. But for long tail applications, we know that's going to take a community effort. And we, in fact, have opened up our APIs in the last year.
We have.
Start that. But even that's a journey, right? And to your point, things like standards can go a long way in accelerating that motion. So it's early days for that. I can't say there's a whole lot of progress being made as an industry on that, but I do think that's going to be a necessary ingredient as we move forward.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I because, the proliferation issue of these just makes it, otherwise it's like playing whack-a-mole, right?
That's right.
I mean, you could wind up having a roadmap of 100 apps that you're going to integrate this year. And then you find out, well, that's good. You got those 100, but 300 took their place.
That's right.
And it's good job security, though, Jim.
It's a lot to be done, and don't forget the 100 that you did a year ago had to be maintained and enhanced.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
There's a lot to be done, but it's like, I do agree with you. It's like many scenarios like this, that bringing in a community effort is going to be key to solving the problem for all of us.
Yeah, it sounds like something screaming for some sort of foundation or community effort.
Yeah,
I'm a little busy here. I probably can't handle it, but it sounds like it needs to be done.
Yes, I agree.
Jim, when do you think Altitude may be this year?
Haven't nailed it down just yet, but typically it's in the fall, Alan. So I would look out sometime.
So you got time.
Yeah, September, October. We're actually thinking about this year sort of expanding it, doing a series of events underneath the Altitude brand. So stay tuned on that, but we'll definitely keep you and your audience posted.
Sure. And then are you going to do another survey this year?
We are. So we've been doing this roughly once a year for the past 5-6 years under different names, but we will definitely continue that. And I think you'll see a similar set of questions and things insights we're trying to get to build upon what we came out with a couple months back.
Great. Just a few more things, a little housekeeping, Jim. We never mentioned, for people who want to get more information about Better Cloud and take control of their SaaS ops, where do they go?
Sure. BetterCloud.com is a great place to start, and lots of great information on SaaS ops and our platform as well.
And then at the same time, they could get, for instance, if they wanted to see the survey results and everything, it's up there too?
It is up there. Yes, that's right.
Very cool. Hey, Jim, I want to thank you for joining. Let's not wait 6 months for you to come back here, man.
Definitely.
Actually, it's more than 6 months even.
More than 6.
Yeah.
Anytime, Alan. It's always good to see you. I enjoyed the conversation and look forward to coming back.
Absolutely. Jim Brennan, Chief Product Officer over at Better Cloud, talking about SaaS ops here on TechStrong TV. This is Alan Schimmel. We'll be right back with our next guest.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey, welcome back. Next up, we have a conversation between Alan Schimmel and Kit Merker of Noble9, who is Kit's now the COO of Noble9. So let's give that discussion a listen.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another segment of TechStrong TV. My guest this segment is a good friend of mine, Kit Merker. Some of you may know Kit. He ran business development at JFrog for many years. Then he joined some friends, starting a new company called Noble9, number 9. And Kit was, I think, originally sort of the biz dev person, corp dev person there. But most recently, my friend Kit has got a promotion. Very well deserved. And he's now the COO, Chief Operating Officer at Noble9. So welcome, Mr. Chief Operating Officer. How are you?
Hey, Alan. Thanks a lot for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you, and congratulations on the new role and title. It's always good. I love to see my friends, making progress in their careers, Kit. So good stuff. We've got a bunch of stuff we're gonna You're welcome. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to jump into here. As we start looking at 2021, we're hearing, it's New Year's already. But before we do, let's just kind of lay groundwork. Noble 9. I think some of our audience has heard of it, but probably not most of them. So why don't we start there, Kit? What's Noble 9? What are you guys doing? What's it about?
Sure thing. Yeah. Well, Noble 9, what we're really trying to do is to help organizations with reliability. And I mean, you and I both know we're on a digital service. Everybody's gone digital, and it's kind of the new way things are going. And so there's a need in the market to make sure that works properly. But there's another side of the coin, which is not just about getting all the reliability in the world, but also finding the efficiency. We actually call it the noble balance of reliability, right? Trying to find the right number of nines, not just more nines. And the way we do that is we use this concept called service level objectives, or SOOs, and it's kind of like a service level agreement. Basically, it's a goal, setting a goal that's less than perfection. And by doing that across all the different services in your system, we're kind of part of the automation stack. So we take monitoring data, customer data, et cetera. We help you set these goals, which you encode in infrastructure as code, check it into Git for those developers out there. And then it becomes part of the system for how you respond. And response to reliability issues doesn't necessarily mean, firing off your pager at 3 a.m. to go fix it. It can also mean, using automation or rollbacks or increasing your cloud spend, et cetera. And so that's really what we've been building at Noble 9 over the last, it's a little over a year now that we've been in business. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And so, Kid, over the last year, I mean, look, quite honestly, I became aware of Noble 9 when you joined Noble 9. Before that, I didn't. But, since then, you guys have also added some really, kind of top names in the field to the roster there, and so now, I mean, Noble 9's amassed a great talent pool of doers, right? Of things,
That's right.
leaders.
I mean, one particular hire we're quite proud of is Alex Hidalgo, who joined us as principal SRE. And sure. I think he may have even been on TechStrong TV when he announced he was joining. But he wrote a book just recently called Implementing Service Level Objectives. And this has become, I think, one of the more comprehensive looks at this particular methodology. And so he's come in not as an evangelist, but actually helping us build the system. And his point of view, and I agree with him 100%, is that if we're going to offer a reliability platform, it starts at home. We have to build a reliable solution. And so he's really put the product through its paces, helped us think that through. And yeah, we continue to recruit on the sales and marketing side of things, the business side. We've added some really experienced DevOps folks on the both from an account exec perspective, also pre-sales and solution engineering, helping customers out. And this has been, by the way, one of the biggest transitions for us in the last few months. Has been going from figuring out what to build and hoping that somebody would buy it to now kind of fulfilling the demand, if you know what I mean. And it's kind of amazing what's happened. Now we have line of sight to a general availability launch in the next few, we'll say early in Q1, we'll put it that way, coming up soon. And set of early adopters, beta users, et cetera, that are very passionate, and we've learned a ton about it. Actually, Jen Ordonez, our director of sales, she just wrote a blog recently, a couple months ago, about our beta customer feedback. And so, there's a lot of care and listening that's gone into this process of figuring out what not to build, because that's usually the product development journey is kind of building the wrong thing based on your own assumptions for a while. Yeah, sure. It's been very cool. Great team.
Absolutely. We actually had Alex was on. He did do a TechStrong TV with Mitchell Ashley, one of our hosts here on TechStrong. And then I actually had Alex on. We did a DevOps Unbound roundtable with a live audience. I guess it was last week. No, it was before New Year's. So it had to be three weeks ago, something like that, on day 2 DevOps. And it was pretty cool that we had him. We had John Willis. We had Jane Grohl from DevOps Institute. And
great panel.
Oh, yeah. Then Mitchell and I, and we had You had one or two other really good people too that I don't remember right now. But anyway, yeah, it was a great discussion. Alex added so much to it. His book is killing it too. I mean, it's one of the top books in the category on Amazon. So anyone who's interested in that, yeah, you should definitely go check out Alex Hidalgo. Hidalgo is the author. And I want to say it's an O'Reilly book.
It's an O'Reilly book, yeah. And we actually bought a big stack of copies too. And so if people want to, if they want to get a free copy, if you say the magic words and come find me on Twitter, I'll hook you up with a book too. Some restrictions may apply, US only. I know. I was going to say.
Because it costs more to mail the book than it does to buy those books. I've been down that road.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely. So, Kit, so now, so 2020 was a great kind of building year for Noble 9. We're in 2021. What's the plan? I mean, you're in beta. It was a public beta, I guess you'd call it. But any idea on GA and what that means and where you're going?
Yeah, GA for us, GA should be early in Q1. We're working toward it right now. Obviously, it'll be quality driven, not date driven. But we're working toward it right now, and we're starting to ramp up the kind of customer efforts there, helping get them onboarded, get to production, et cetera. We're starting to get a lot of inbound, which has been really positive. And we're also developing, I think one of the things we really did strongly last year was our meetup, the Beyond Seattle SRE meetup, which we've now expanded to, I think, 450 members, something like that. And we've built a core group of SREs that are helping to organize that, including 2 Google SREs and an SRE from UiPath and an SRE from Getty Images, and really centered around the Seattle community. But now we have people from all over the world joining. We have the speakers and attendees from France and from India and just all over. And it's been a really cool thing. We also opened up a community Slack space. And this, I think, if I'm making a recommendation, anybody out there building a community, get a Slack or Discord space of some sort around your meetups or your communities, because it's so important to have that connection and for people to just be able to, hop into the channels or talk about what they want to talk about. Completely changed our engagement with folks, where before it was, trying to get people to come to the meetup and advertising it, and they got a million things going on. Now they feel like they're part of the community. They're actually setting the agenda. They're building relationships, and that's great for us. And we're not using that as a sales technique. It's really more about listening and understanding what the pain is, and building these relationships that we hope will turn into long-term relationships. Really helped us shape the product quite a bit, and I definitely recommend that for anybody building a product in this new world in 2021.
I know how that goes. I mean, and it is a new world. Kit, we were talking a little bit about what marketing is like, how this is, how 2020's kind of changed tech marketing, how conferences aren't going to be the same for a very long time. Whether we have vaccines and we could start going out, it's great. You're not going to see 50, 100,000 people coming to a conference anytime soon.
That's right.
And so it's an opportunity. At the same time, it's a potential barrier, right? So you get a company like Noble 9, and you're not alone, right? A lot of companies have launched. A lot of companies have raised money, over the past year, and now they're launching. They're going GA. They're getting out there. How do you, you can't just hire some DevRel people who speak at conferences or go shake hands wearing a funny hat or something, right? What do you do?
I think it's a fantastic question. I mean, I wish I had the perfect answer. I'll tell you what the North Star I have with this is to create authentic and sort of digital experiences that have like a lot of credibility behind them. I think credibility is one of the key things, because everyone's attention is limited. There's a cacophony of ideas and people trying to get attention and everything else. We don't want to be one more than that. And so I think making it easy for people to find you, I think, is one key thing. Being very clear about who you are, who you're for, right? What kind of problems you're solving, and also how you're solving it, and being very educational about that. Letting people come to you where you can. I know it's kind of easier said than done, but and then finding ways to be creative and to engage and be really truly authentic. I think to your point about the opportunity, I remember, and I'm sure you do too, we're both road warriors, right? Say, oh yeah, next time I'm in New York, we'll get together. Next time I'm San Francisco get together. Now that excuse has kind of disappeared. And so what I found is for myself is that I just, I can get on the Zoom, I can get on a call with somebody, and I don't wait to be randomly in the same city or to pretend that I'm going to randomly be in the same city. It goes both ways.
There was a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah. You know the type, the play.
Uh-huh.
But there's something about if you can come with an idea and you can come with a rationale and you can come in and not waste people's time, but create a genuine connection, people are open and they're willing to talk. What they're not willing to do is what I found is that it's just, kind of being herded around to generic or less than interesting ideas. It's like, don't waste my time. My time right now is precious. I'm at home. I'm not on the road. I'm not, at a conference, they're kind of a captive audience, right? You're going to get them wandering around at the booth, and you might get a random chat, and you have a chance to win them. The barrier is much higher, but if you can get that authentic connection, I think that the world is available to us. We just have to be smart about how we do it and not hurt our credibility along the way.
I don't disagree. Here, an interesting observation. So we do about one big virtual event a month. So this month, our big event is called Predict. It's January 21, 22, and it's obviously about looking, predicting what the year ahead looks like. We've done it. This is the third year we're doing it. We have a mainframe DevOps in February. We have a cyber in March, and so on the rest of the year. And one of the nice things we were offering was live Q&A with the speakers. Right, because if the speaker did it live, we could put him in a chat room after, or he or she in a chat room after, or if it was a pre-recorded, they could do chat while their session's playing.
Yep.
The interactivity from the audience, there's like a Moore's law kind of thing going on here, is directly related to how good that speaker's session was. If it's just frankly marketing fluff, bull stuff, the chat room's empty, man. No one wants to sit around and ask the VP of product marketing about, why their product's so great. Yeah, their value prop. But, if you've got good speakers talking about good stuff, there's just not enough time to answer all the questions. Right?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, if you look at, there's a very human aspect to this, very sort of, there's something rooted in this deep idea that, the hard work still needs to be there to tell the story, to have a compelling, a show that you're putting on that's actually, for the audience, right? And it really recenters you. Now everything has to be about the audience. And if it's not, it doesn't work. And I think we got away with having less than stellar content over the last few years. I think we've been on a consistent ramp up of, and I don't want to poo-poo anything, but, sort of the sponsored talk, very marketing driven, very like generic, bland kind of thing, and not truly
slideshow stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's an opportunity to make a renaissance here for people to really get into what is the core of the story or message behind the art, behind the experience or how I'm presenting it, but what is the idea? And if the idea is great, then you can wrap all kinds of things around it and turn it into something great. But don't blame your marketing issues on the reach when the idea isn't really compelling.
And that's exactly it. You can take the horse to water. Another thing that I've noticed, Kit, and as CEO here, I've made some bets on, is that when we first went with COVID and everything went virtual events, virtual conferences were people's, in their mind, a 2D online representation of what a real world conference looked like. And guilty, we did that, right? Our conferences last year, we had, booths, but it was just a picture of a booth. And then you clicked on a screen to watch a video, or a chat window popped up, or you could download some stuff. But really it was a picture of a booth. And so, and the auditoriums where you watch sessions, the idea that you went into a virtual auditorium and there were multiple sessions, you could pick what you want to watch, like you're at the multiplex, in the cinema. Because we had our own notions of what a conference is.
That's right.
I think in 2021 and beyond, we're going to see virtual conferences, virtual events that take advantage of the virtual environment. I mean, we went from having one platform to 4 different platforms that each offer different advantages in a virtual environment to allow users as well as sponsors and speakers to interact on video, more live interaction, more real kind of stuff, more interesting stuff. No, it doesn't take the place of an in-person conference. It's not supposed to, right? It's a virtual event. Use the medium in its best way. Don't try to take a square peg and shove it in this round hole. And I think people are going to be doing a lot of that in 2021.
I hope so. I couldn't agree with you more. I think for us, like even we fell prey to this with the meetups too, right? We tried to do the meetup and just turn it into, and then we realized, we needed to break up the agenda. We needed to have these ways of doing networking. I wish we'd had.
You got to do asynchronous, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
And
because that's what Slack lets you do too.
If the conferences become more optimized for a digital and hybrid, and I think hybrid is going to be a really interesting question mark. Like how do you support both of those? Exactly. Mm-hmm. But if we can see something that is not, to your point, not just a recreation of the physical or an attempt at a recreation, I think we can see something great. And I hope to spend some marketing money on that if we can make it work. But we even joked about we should just create a booth web page for our website, and then when a conference is going on, just direct people to that. There's no great magic.
Don't laugh. Don't laugh. We're doing it, right? One of the platforms we have is basically we're going to give you a web page that has 3 columns with a bunch of widgets, right, for different functionality. You pick what widgets you want to put in there. You want a video here and a regular chat there and a video chat there and some download stuff here and some registration. It's because all it is a web page. Who needs the picture of a booth? Anyway, exactly. Don't even get me started, Kit. You know what? If for you out there, if you're interested, check out. Predict on January 21, 22 is actually going to be on one of our new platforms. Check that out and see what we're talking about. Kit, we're about out of time, but I want to seriously, congratulations. It's good to see. I take a lot of pride in seeing my friends do well and move ahead. And I'm glad to see they recognize you for the talent you are. So knock them dead and make them proud over there, man. Okay.
I'll do my best. I appreciate it a lot.
I know you will.
It's so great to see you.
All right. Kit Merker, COO, Noble 9, coming to a GA near you. So coming to GA near you very soon. All righty. Hey, Kit, take care.
Thanks a lot.
All righty. We'll be right back with our next guest in just a moment.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more. ContainerJournal.com is operated by MediaOps Inc., the team behind DevOps.com, Digital Anarchist, SecurityBoulevard.com, DevOps Connect, and DevOpsDozen.com.
All right, next up is our Something Old segment that features an encore presentation of CISO Talk. It features Miranda Ritchie of IBM, Matt Newfield of Unisys, as well as Mitch Ashley and Alan Schimmel. They're going to be talking.
I'm Alan Schimmel, and welcome to another episode of CISO Talk. I am joined by my co-host, Matt Newfield. Matthew is the CISO over at Unisys, and Matt, welcome.
Pleasure to be here. It's good to talk to you again.
And Matt and I are joined by our usual sidekick playing Ed McMahon this week, Mitch Ashley.
And introduce you.
Doing his best, yes. Mitch is, of course, CEO, founder of Accelerated Strategies Group. And our guest for this episode is Miranda Ritchie of IVM. Miranda, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. My name is Miranda Ritchie, and I'm a global delivery leader at IBM's Managed Security Services.
Excellent, and thank you. So, guys, the theme for this week's show is cybersecurity and healthcare. You know, and we were talking a little bit, you know, in the green room. Well, I'm in the green room, but we were talking a little bit before turning on the recording about, you know, the uniqueness of cybersecurity and healthcare, where we're not necessarily talking about financial gain or, you know, stealing money. We're not even really at this point talking about personally identifiable information and HIPAA information at this point. We're talking about the life and death nature that cyber threats can pose to individuals, you know, as a result of being, you know, within the healthcare industry. So with that as a backdrop, Matt, I'm going to ask you to kind of kick us off today and get us started.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. You know, a few years ago, it was all the rage in the cybersecurity world to talk about how we had broached over or moved over from being in this virtual world to where the cybersecurity code, attack code, could actually impact physical things. And you can remember some stories about refinement machines being destroyed via bits and bytes. And that was a real eye-opener for a lot of people when it came to infrastructure and critical infrastructure at the time. Now we're starting to really see in the news a lot lately about how these cybersecurity attacks, these adversarial attacks, can impact much more than what we're used to reading about. We read about dollars, as you said. We read about our data, personally identifiable information, and we think it really stops there. Maybe it goes to reputation. Maybe it goes to me losing my checking account. But there's a lot of talk right now, and healthcare being the main area, about how it can impact life. And we've heard stories before, but this has been one of the real big ones. And whether or not you believe that this poor individual in Germany actually died because of the ransomware attack against the Dusseldorf University Clinic is almost irrelevant. It's opened the conversation up, and as we were discussing in the green room, it expands beyond to a much greater level of how is it we are going to, as a community of cybersecurity professionals, help to protect an infrastructure and help secure and lock down an infrastructure when you really look at that environment as something that has never really been locked down before and is run and utilized by a group of people where seconds do matter. Take away ransomware, seconds matter. And if you put too many gates in place, your cybersecurity could impact life. And it just opens up a very interesting conversation that I'm very excited to have with you, Alan, Miranda, and Mitch today.
Absolutely. So, Miranda, you as the new person here, don't wait for us to call your name. Feel free to jump in and comment and, you know, take the conversation where you want it to go. But, you know, you're right, Matt. It's life and death. And you know, for some of in our audience may not be familiar with the Dusseldorf case of this person who might have died. Does anybody want to just kind of give a quick brief on the fact pattern there? Does anybody know the fact pattern there?
I do. So
okay.
There was a 78-year-old woman who was experiencing cardiac arrest. She was picked up by an ambulance. The ambulance, through a ransomware attack in the hospital, was rerouted to a hospital that was much further away than the one she should have gone to. So when the ambulance crew arrived, they picked this poor woman up who was experiencing a significant medical emergency. And instead of going to the closest hospital, the system routed to a hospital further away, and it was blamed on a ransomware attack. And again, there is no evidence today, and if people comment, we're not here saying that caused her death. There's no evidence to say if they had cut 5-10 minutes off of that trip, she would have survived. But again, it opens that relevant point. Let's say there had been another medical emergency where 5 minutes would have mattered. You can.
Well, yeah, no. In medical emergencies, minutes and seconds count, and anything, whether it's cybersecurity related or any other related, if it's shaving minutes, costing you minutes and seconds, people's lives are at risk.
Right. And Miranda, you and I were talking a little while ago about, this an extension. We could go to that extreme of, what's going on in a hospital with ransomware and what's going on with the heart monitors. But you had a really interesting perspective and conversation around PPE and that supply chain. I think that could be a really interesting conversation as well.
Yeah. So earlier this year, IBM reported on a campaign targeting a task force that was, the sole purpose was to supply, act as a supply chain for personal protective equipment. This was in Europe. And so, even though they're targeting, through phishing, they're targeting over 100 individuals at that task force, probably to steal information. It's not necessarily to encrypt their data. It's just part of the race for a vaccine, race for the cure, right? But as a byproduct of that or collateral damage of that, if you're restricting people's access to PPE in an already tight crunch situation where there's not enough to go around, you're still putting people's lives at risk if they're having to reuse old equipment.
I'm thinking too, Miranda, the whole supply chain integrity problem, right?
Right.
Is that kind of an attack, or is this truly valid PPE or whatever that is, drug that we're delivering, vaccine? Or has it been compromised? Is it falsified? And you have to maintain that chain of control in your supply chain. And you lose that, there could be lives at the other end that immediately are at stake.
Right. If the PPE is tainted or if testing equipment is faulty and it's returning a different false positive rate than it necessarily should be, that's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, you can even take that to an interesting extreme to say if let's say a bad actor was able to breach one of these suppliers, think of in healthcare again, the people who are making a vaccine and they beat them to market with a vaccine that may not work or may have implications later, you could go to an extreme to say there could be the human factor of I get really sick from the vaccine or the vaccine doesn't help me. But you said something a second ago that really stuck my head, which is that false positive. What if I think I'm cured? What if myself and my 1,000 closest friends think we're cured, and then we go to that stadium and infect other people? And you end up with potentially another strain of this virus.
Or super spreader event.
You end up with a super spreader event because, again, you're finding a cheaper alternative that sounds like it's the same thing when it's not. And
Black Sunday 2 or something like that would be another good movie. But guys, when I hear you talking about these things, in my mind, there's two camps. One camp is the ransomware attack, the supply chain attack that Miranda mentioned, and the cost to human healthcare, or the cost to humans who, as a result of healthcare, is almost collateral damage. I didn't ransomware the hospital because I meant that lady to die. Or I didn't do something to the supply chain because I wanted to cause that nurse not to have an N95 mask. I did it because I'm a scorpion and that's what I do, right? So I killed the frog halfway across the river. But then there's another type of attack altogether, and that is the on purpose, I'm trying to kill someone attack, right? And that is more kind of what when you talk about, we've seen, can we control someone's pacemaker? Can we hack into someone's pacemaker or insulin pump or something like that? And that now you're starting to get into, state-sponsored, not even espionage, but murder, assassination.
Yeah. Well, we do that through, Russia does that supposedly through poisons today. We hear about all the...
I don't think you have to say supposedly anymore. It's been pretty well documented.
Trying to be PC here a little bit.
Yeah, unless people apply neurotoxins to themselves, but whatever. But
you're talking about frogs and scorpions, so, Yeah,
well, I was trying to... What's the word there? An Aesop's
Analog, right?
Yeah. But no, I mean, so I think as cybersecurity professionals, we have to worry about both of these scenarios, right? The inadvertent collateral damage of individuals' health care as a result of cyber activity, and then the on purpose downright murder of individuals using cyber methods, like terrorism. Can you imagine? And I don't even want to say it out loud. I'm afraid someone will get an idea. But a tainted virus, a tainted vaccine.
Tainted vaccine, yeah.
Right?
You know, you could take it to the murder where, you know, someone shuts that pacemaker off, someone, you know, turns that MRI machine on when someone's in there doing work and the magnet turns on and rips the pacemaker out of your chest. But you could go that extreme. You could also think of ransomware in a new variant. Right now, ransomware is about give me dollars and cents or I'm going to steal or sell your data. You know, the other variant I'm hearing from you, and Miranda, I don't know if you've seen this in the wild or hear any chatter on this, but I could also hold your hospital short-term ransom. You've got 20 minutes to pay Bitcoin or I will not turn your neonatal intensive care unit systems back on.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, and we're also seeing kind of an uptick in these blended ransomware attacks similar to Maze, right? Where they're not just encrypting your data, but they're taking it first and then playing a sort of name and shame game, right? Where they've got this wall of fame and they're going to publicly out you. I mean, imagine if that happened to a pharmaceutical company who did have, you know, a cure or a vaccine. That's the keys to opening up the economy. There is a huge financial incentive for taking that data and exposing it publicly.
Yeah, absolutely. Or not exposing it and just trying to replicate it yourself, to Alan's point of nation state actors. And, you know, this is really what scares people in this profession is, so, okay, what do you do? How do you convince doctors and nurses and practitioners in these environments whose entire lives have been focused on a singular mission to save human life? A very noble mission. But when you add that securely to the end, that is a new realm. That's a new realm for some of the pharmaceutical companies. That is a new realm for hospitals and a lot of doctors and nurses. And, you know, some of us may come across and go, come on, you know, you got to do this stuff. You have to take cybersecurity seriously. But I get it. If you're a doctor and your sole focus is to go in and do brain surgery or in the neonatal units to make sure those children live, how do we as cyber professionals broach that gap and that divide to say, but we want to make sure this potential thing that doctor probably has never experienced in their life, a ransomware attack, a virus, you know, something that you read about but may not, how do you bridge that gap? And that, I think, Mitch, I don't know if you've thought through this, but in your experience, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that because both Alan and I have some experience selling security solutions into medical environments, into hospitals, and every environment has its own kind of unique personality. And I think maybe the personalities of doctors is kind of infamous of you know, what it's like to work in that kind of environment. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's that thing that gets in the way from me not just doing my job, saving a life, you know, taking care of this patient, my oath, right, to do no harm. So you're talking about a whole nother level of it. I wonder if there are places where we can replace things like tokens and passwords with something you wear, where proximity will enable you to use a piece of equipment and log on to something instead of fat fingering your password for the third time, or I forgot my card, right? But something that you can wear as part of your things that make the environment as you enter open up and give you the secure access. Those kind of approaches, rather than the typical things we think of in a corporate environment, like passwords and token cards and things like that.
I think to some extent we also have to kind of go back to the basics and look at how these threat actors are doing what they do. And it's not sexy, it's not cool, but spam and phishing accounts for such a huge percentage of day-to-day attacks, including the one that I mentioned earlier about the attack on the PPE supply chain. When we talk about ransomware, whether it's the plain old encryption variety or the information stealing name and shame variety, a lot of it is still coming in through email, and a lot of attackers are playing off people's fear to get them to open email. If you get an email that says urgent, COVID vaccine related, you're more likely to click on it than if you think it's, a Nigerian prince.
Well, and there's a lot of publicly available information about what's happening with COVID, specifically where the hot spots are, where the increases are, the testing rates, the positive rates of that. And I think most of us fully expect there to be all kinds of phishing to say, in this location in Iowa, if it's a hot spot, go blanket those folks. You can get the vaccine today. We will overnight it to you tomorrow and get you on the program now. Enter your credit card or whatever. I mean, that stuff's going to happen if it's not already happening.
Oh yeah, it is. And we've had other shows, Alan, where we talk about that get back to basics, and you and I have been bantering that around. But it is very true. It gets to the point here of maybe the angle that we need to take in industry is to help not overly secure an environment, but help them get back to basics so that the threat landscape doesn't get to zero, but it gets to a much smaller number, which is key. And, Alan, if you're okay with this, one variant to the conversation, Mitch, you brought up, how do you change authentication mechanisms? And we're starting to see, at least I'm starting to see in a lot of my conversations, companies try to deal with biometrics, facial recognition, for example, and having that become an acceptable way inside of an organization, let's not say corporation, just an organization, to have it be your authentication and your continual zero trust authentication mechanism as you're walking around. And there's still, I think, the problem of perception of what that can, what you can do with that information, or what is it watching? Did it see me scratch the side of my face? Did it see me messing with my hair? Or, if I'm wearing a toupee, I don't want people to know as I'm shifting it around, walking down the hallway, kind of private information. But has anybody heard if there's going to be better acceptance? Because
no, I don't think there will be better. To the contrary, Matt. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you guys, I hear the problem with a lot of the facial recognition is inherent racism, right? It has a very hard time distinguishing black faces. And so a lot of people are shying away from using that now, right? Because you're going to have a problem with people of color, being effective or not. And if that, and I don't know if that's the case or not, because I don't know enough about the technology to know, right from wrong, truth from fact or lie. But that's what I'm hearing. So if that's out there, how the heck can we use it? I think your basics comment is dead on, Matt. Mitchell, I'd love to live in the world where magic cadabra, they know it's Alan and the door opens for me. But that's a world of magic abracadabra. And we're not going to get to abracadabra so quickly. Call me, a stick in the mud, but I'm done chasing those magic bullets. I've spent 20 years in security looking for my next magic bullet. I don't think it's there. I think if it comes, great. But in the meantime, what can we do today? We could get back to basics. We could try to cut down the phishing. 85% of breaches are coming from known exploits, not some super duper, 0 day cooked up in a lab in Beijing or Wuhan or wherever, right? They're coming from known CVEs that we didn't patch. They're coming from people just didn't have good hygiene in their email. Can we work on that while we leave the CIA to come up with the next magic bullet, abracadabra, or M6 or whoever works on these things?
But that it's a very valid point. There have been a lot of articles I've read, even as recently as this morning, that there's a lot of Homeland Security in the United States is highly recommending you patch. You have to patch. And when you look at the date they say you have to patch by, it was a week and a half ago, right? And it's like, and they're worried because people could be 6 months or a year away. Miranda, we've talked about the upticks we've seen in WannaCry. I mean,
yeah.
Right. Oh, you mean that new threat, WannaCry? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Miranda, are you still seeing that where you are?
Well, we're still seeing, companies not patched for Eternal Blue. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no, it is. So, I think for anybody watching this saying, well, what can we do? I'm in healthcare and I'm worried. You scared me with that ransomware thing, or I'm worried about the pacemaker hack. It really starts with back to basics, right? Can we patch what we already know is out there, right? I think back, Mitchell and I, we co-founded Still Secure along with our friend Raj, and we had a vulnerability assessment and management tool. Was it 2003, Mitchell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early
2002. And, back then, the idea of patching, I don't even think Microsoft had Patch Tuesdays at this point.
They were just coming out with Patch Tuesday.
Right. There was a company called Citadel Hercules was the product that was sort of automated patching. DISA put a lot of money into it for the federal government. People weren't doing it then. If you would have told me, if I could, Back to the Future to 2002 and say, I'm sitting here on a Zoom video in the middle of a worldwide pandemic that no one can go out of their house, and in 2020, and we're still not patching in a timely manner, I would have said, what happened? Did we all get stupid? Right? Why haven't we solved that basic problem? And now it manifests itself in something as important as healthcare.
But whose problem is it, Alan? Here's my concern if we rely on patching in healthcare, which I think is different than a lot of industry.
It is.
It's a lot of embedded operating systems. It's leased operating systems where you cannot patch. I mean, in my history, I've helped companies that are still running Windows NT environments because the amount of money it would take to get them off of these old systems is beyond their budgets, is beyond their capabilities. They can put controls in place to limit access to it. But, Miranda, you were covering the phishing and the vishing and in those kinds of attacks. The back to basics on top of patching, Alan, to me, is education. And done in a way where you're not insulting someone, as we were joking earlier, that may believe they're better than others or smarter than others, which most likely they are. I promise you I would be a doctor if I could pass all those tests, and I didn't, if I liked the sight of blood. But, how do you help convince people? And that, it's a real psychology problem as well, that get back to basics. Because, again, if you're used to an environment that if I'm getting my email on my corporate device, this thing right here, I'm getting my email on it, and the hospital is required, or I believe the hospital is protecting me, so I should only get valid stuff on here, how do you educate them?
Do you introduce the concept of targeted training, right? Most companies do user education at least annually. But how many have you seen that are doing targeted training for medical professionals or healthcare professionals related to COVID? How many companies do you see in the lead up to a special event like the upcoming elections, training their employees specifically to look for potential attempts to exploit, concerns or worries or, whatever about the elections? Not to take off topic, but, the concept exists, targeted training, right?
Targeted, but there's two other things. I mean, something as basic as banners. The amount of pushback I've seen at companies where you flag any email that doesn't originate from your own corporate environment is flagged with external banner would cut down on a lot of people failing phishing tests, not realizing that I, the CISO of this corporation, did not just send you an email from some other URL asking you to click the link. If it says external and has my name, it's probably not me.
You mean you didn't lose your wallet in Nairobi and you need me to wire you money right away?
And I couldn't get access to corporate account.
You couldn't get access to your corporate account.
I mean, it's like, these kinds of things, and I know we're sticking in healthcare, but a lot of the message can go beyond. But in healthcare, these are the things that I think you have to start focusing on is education. And then if you can help, and Alan, I get your point around facial recognition, and I'm not a facial recognition expert. I'm not a thumbprint recognition expert. I'm also not a voice recognition expert. But I've seen plenty of technologies, especially as people adopt zero trust concepts, where you can start thinking differently. And I think, Miranda and Mitch, your points were, you can stick with the legacy, that stuff we did in 2000, 2002, 99, let's be honest, and hope for the best, or you can try to push for better, more optimal ways. And sometimes they're not, to your point, brain surgery or rocket science. One of the things that I've seen that I'm a big fan of lately is adaptive phishing training. Alan, if you get a phishing test in your organization, you pass, we're not going to bother you for 60 days. Mitch, you failed. We put 7 indicators of a phish in that email. You're going to get another one tomorrow with 6. You better not fail it.
Talk about wall of shame.
Then 5. and we're going to tie it to your HR record.
Matt, I think there's another part of this, back to the basics, and we're talking largely about things that, with end users, right, that are accessing the systems. So part of my background is running a company that provided digital certificates to device manufacturers, Wi-Fi, energy, medical, network. We don't all realize it if you're not in the manufacturing world, but the authenticity of devices and the amount of kind of fakery, if you will, of people that take a device and then make one look exactly like it. And digital certificates are used to really, before something can connect, right? Even talk on a network, it has to go through that handshake. And I think that's also part of that supply chain discussion. But fundamental to that is an infrastructure that we're doing the basics in. If you're not renewing certificates, a simple thing like that, you may shut off access to the network. I've gotten call from customers saying, what happened and why is this? I didn't even know there's a digital certificate in there, and now I can't get anybody on my network. How do I get a new certificate out there? Those are basics that within the infrastructure we also have to take care of, because we can be just as impactful to not being able to get your job done, deliver a service, do some medical procedure if we don't do that.
That's very true. Another get back to basics that I'd be curious about, we're not victim shaming here, but we tend to talk about what the end organization should be doing to fix the problems here. And one of the things we did broach in this conversation, I think really does impact and focus on healthcare, is the fact that a lot of these environments cannot be upgraded, right? They're either locked by the manufacturer, they're owned by the manufacturer, you don't want to be on that Windows 98 system anymore, give us another $10 million and we're going to get you on Windows 10, and you better hope that it does an EOL in 4 years because it's another $10 million and it's a life-saving device. So, have we ever thought about going back and pushing the manufacturers to change their protocols?
So I think, Matt, you're onto something. Ultimately, I think it is the manufacturer's responsibility to manufacture devices that can be upgraded, locked down better, that are future-proof to a certain extent. I had this, again, back in my stealth security days. I remember we went to a bunch of hospitals. This was around NAC, was first rolling out network access control. And we don't think about what has an IP on a network in a hospital. But, if you've ever had IV in a hospital, right, you have that IV pump. Well, that IV pump has telemetry that's showing back at the nurse's station how much fluids you're getting and so forth. That has an IP address. Can that IV pump be updated, right? And if it can't be, and I got to replace all the IV pumps in a hospital, think about it. Each one of those IV pumps, I forgot what the number was, but back then it was like a 25 or 35K a pop, because they all have to transmit telemetry. Forget pacemakers for a second, just your basic EKG monitor, the wires they put on you, the 6 wires. And it reports in. It very rarely reports those stations that used to be over your bed, and you could see you always see it on TV. Do-doop, 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 do-doop. Each one of those stations could be 100K a pop. And then they still also have to report back to the central nurses station. So they're wired for the internet. If those machines weren't designed to be upgradable, patchable, poor design by the manufacturer, and it should be their responsibility. And if you're in a healthcare field, forget being a cyber person even right now, but you're responsible for, choosing these kinds of IoT devices, right? Because that's kind of what they are. And you're not picking devices that were designed with an upgrade path in place. You're as responsible for that 89-year-old lady as someone as the well, maybe not as much as the hacker, but you bear responsibility for that. Let alone, Matt, the MRI machines and the $2 and $3 million pieces of equipment. I will tell you personally, I had an ablation procedure about 1.5 years ago for AFib, and before they put me out, I was able to be in the cath lab watching all these high-tech monitors and they had my heart up on the monitor and everything. And it was like Star Trek. And thank God the doctors did an amazing job, and I haven't had a problem since. But this equipment, that's the equipment that I would expect. And I spoke to a lady who actually ran the main machine that does the doctor works the catheter, but this catheter tests the nerves around your heart and decides which ones need to be isolated. This lady, she said, I'm a dinosaur because I was a nurse before I got into this and got trained. I'm the only one I know who actually has a medical background operating these machines. Most of the people operating the machines are engineers.
A lot of times they're from the manufacturer of the vendor.
They are from the manufacturer, because the manufacturer is the only one who trains them. But those machines were designed with the internet in mind. They were designed to be upgraded. They were designed to be better secured as time goes on. I think overall we've gotten better at that. Far from perfect.
But you still have to pay. It's still expensive. And if you're an old
But that's part of it. Well, everything about healthcare is expensive.
Yeah, but you got to get the money. Governments bail out a lot of companies. Maybe it's time to I'm not trying to be inflammatory in this, but maybe it's time to bail out some hospitals to give them that upgrade. And I agree. I think, and again, I'm not going to call any medical company out, but let's be honest, a lot of companies design non-future-proof equipment on purpose.
Absolutely. It's a gravy train. I'm going to throw something out there. I'm going to throw it out for my cybersecurity friends who are watching this. If we gave as much of a crap about making our medical equipment upgradable as we care about having personally identifiable information be locked down in HIPAA, we'd have a hell of a lot more better equipment now than we do right now. And I think, have we put the wrong emphasis in here on worrying about PII as much as we do, when we're losing sight of the real life and death of we need these machines to be upgradable.
Well, and they need to be current, and the technology needs to be, as you said, have some future path to whether it's a new product or an upgrade of it, and it also has to be reliable. That's part of it too, right? Of course, in security is making sure that things are available. I used to have a family member who had a mammogram, and the system crashed in the middle of it. Now, not a life-saving situation, but can you imagine sitting there and some computer crashes that you're like, what the hell is that thing doing? And my heart going to stop, or what's going on?
To your point, Alan, if you had looked up at the screen and saw a blue screen of death, how would you have felt?
Yeah.
Pretty dead. Pretty dead. I mean, but it was amazing. But you know what? Hey, I went to see the Rolling Stones in Miami last year, and I saw Mick Jagger running around that screen. He had heart valve transplant or heart valve replacement 2 or 3 months before via a catheter. We're doing amazing things in medical, no doubt about it. Why can't we get it right about improving the security pathways for our medical devices?
So hopefully, as people start to see, to make this full circle, as people start to see that the infrastructure inside of hospitals that they've been stuck dealing with, how susceptible, and in a lot of cases, in a lot of countries, in a lot of regions of non-third world countries, how legacy and antiquated it is, how old it is. Like I said, it is not uncommon and I don't even bat an eyebrow to see a Windows NT environment, to see Windows 98, to see these legacy systems. The only one that causes me consternation these days is when I see Windows ME, because at what point did you install that? Why would you have installed that?
Or Vista.
Or Vista. But it is the fact that over and over and over again, what I hear is we cannot upgrade, even if I wanted to. Even if I bought Windows 10 today, it will not work on that device. That device has never been patched, ever, ever, ever. And hopefully people can start seeing that we can go at them and say patch when they can't. We can go at them and say, hey, you need to do a digital transformation. You can't. Moving it to the cloud doesn't fix the fact that the systems on-prem in that hospital are susceptible. And most hospitals that I talk to don't have hundreds of millions of dollars of liquid cash sitting around to do those upgrades. And if they have to decide between upgrading something that works, it works, to something that also works but is new and maybe more secure, or expanding a wing, adding more neonatal units, hiring more doctors, more nurses, you know which one they're going to go, because that's what they've been doing for the last 30 years.
So to your point, Matt, what do you tell a client like that? Where do you help them spend what limited resources they may have? One thing that we see a lot of is, okay, we can't patch the system, it's legacy, the manufacturer doesn't even exist anymore maybe. You can still guarantee you have visibility, right? And we're seeing a big uptick in demand for IoT monitoring, agentless monitoring, IOMT, medical things monitoring, and just making sure that at the very least you can see what's going on, because I think a large number of healthcare companies, they may have a lot of these devices in their network and they can't fix it, they can't patch it, but they also can't see it.
So Miranda, are you talking about like augmenting these devices with some sort of visibility module, even if it's like a physical thing you put on there? Because I've seen this in manufacturing now as well.
And in MSS, we work a lot with agentless partners, so you don't even need to actually install something on the device itself, but it still allows cybersecurity professionals to gain visibility into what those devices are doing.
Discoverable. They have a fingerprint or footprint that you can recognize. That's it.
And you baseline, right? So you baseline and you verify that that's a good known set of traffic, and any deviation from that baseline is investigated.
I was just thinking about the patching, when I was in the device security world, they were just starting to think about doing updating of IoT and other devices, right? Now you can buy routers that are set to auto update, but how many cameras are out there? How many, let me monitor my blood pressure. There's a lot of legacy stuff there that isn't even upgradable, more or less set to upgrade its own software, or users who would even know or want to do that. It's a lot of legacy stuff there.
It's a legacy mindset. And Alan, you said something a little while ago that I really agree with. It's a mindset change, and the manufacturers have got to start thinking that way and putting cybersecurity, putting upgrade, putting monitoring in, and taking this seriously. We could have a whole conversation on cameras and how most cameras out there that you can buy off the internet are all running the same operating system, all have the same default password, all have the same protocols, and all have the same bugs, because the manufacturer wasn't interested in security, but they were interested in how cheap can I make this device and still differentiate it in the market so I can sell a bunch of them. And
I think take it one more step, Matt. I agree with what you're saying. Take it one more step. My observation was the fundamental change next is changing the business model, because those manufacturers make those devices, sell them, we're done. We're on to designing the next edition for next world, whatever the next year for whatever the model is going to be. They were not in the past set up to even do patching to software or even.
No, there was no upgrade path.
Now that's part of the model. That's part of the business. You've got to do that.
Yep.
So I think the onus, instead of being placed on these hospitals, the individual hospitals, needs to be passed to the manufacturer, and it has to be that way. Hey guys, we're ridiculously over time, actually, but but that's okay. That's okay. It's okay.
Whose turn was it to watch the clock?
It wasn't me, but I got to be honest with you. I am so thrilled that we had a discussion on cybersecurity and healthcare, and it wasn't focused on HIPAA. Kudos to all three of you.
That was the word of the day, Alan. No HIPAA.
No HIPAA. I think that's what we're going to title this one: Cybersecurity, Healthcare, No HIPAA.
I got the email. Did you all get that email? No HIPAA on the.
No, I must have missed that one. But what a great show! What a great show, Miranda. Will you come back and visit us again and add in here to the chorus?
Sure. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for thinking of me, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Miranda. Mitchell, as always, thank you very much. Matt, what can I say? I'm sorry it took us so long to get our next episode done, but we've got another one coming up really soon. We're going to discuss why every tech vendor should have a CISO and the mysterious case of the Uber CISO.
Absolutely.
And what's happening there. So that's going to be our next one. But for now, hey, we're going to wrap this CISO Talk episode up. Miranda Ritchie, IBM, thank you for joining us. Mitchell, Matt, thank you. This is Alan Schimmel. Catch us on our next CISO Talk show. But for now, we're out.
Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Today is January 7th. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I am here with the Thursday edition of the news headlines. First up on DevOps.com is an article that takes a look at how healthcare companies can optimize software for improved patient outcomes. We all know that healthcare often can quite literally be a life and death situation. So it makes sense that providers want to optimize their systems to provide the best quality care. CI and CD and feature flagging are taking center stage in helping engineering teams make that happen. But there are some unique challenges in healthcare that need to be considered when it comes to DevOps. This article takes a look at some of those challenges and how feature flags can help speed the velocity of innovation without the risk of breaching regulations or making sensitive data easily available to hackers. An interesting read, regardless of whether you're in healthcare or another highly regulated industry or not. Next up, we have an article about the emergence of security orchestration as an enabler for DevSecOps in 2021. Mike Vizard parses out some of the activity that has been occurring in the space as code analysis tools vendors are starting to align with security orchestration engine providers. The idea is to help shift responsibility for application security further left toward developers. Case in point, Zero North's moves to add shift left to its kitty of soft security tools that can be orchestrated via its software as a security service platform. We've been talking about DevSecOps for a while now, and it has become clear to many that, like many things, it is much easier to talk about it than to implement it. Vendors recognize that and are looking for ways to help further the shift left philosophy to put it into action. Aligning code analysis with security orchestration is certainly one way to help further DevSecOps. It will be interesting to see what's happening in this space and what else emerges as the year progresses. So I guess watch this space. Also on DevOps.com is an article that underscores the importance of speed when testing mobile apps. We all know the importance of a mobile app in brand recognition and in presenting a user experience that can help set a company apart from its competitors. Users have come to expect that companies have a mobile app, and if they don't, they wonder what is wrong with that company. But they will not tolerate a subpar experience with the app, and they will delete it without a second thought if it's not good. That's why testing is critical. That said, testing environments are a challenge for many organizations that have enterprise applications, or they have fluid applications that have shorter release cycles. So this article takes a look at some of the ways mobile app testing is holding back what should be an accelerated delivery process, and ways in which organizations can speed things up without sending them to a screeching halt. All right, over on Container Journal, we have an article that looks at the role containers could, and in many cases will, play in a post-COVID world. Yes, the pandemic has sucked. And yes, like all things, this too shall pass. But I think we can all agree that things will not go back to the way they were before the pandemic hit. In many cases, that's a good thing. Containers are helping organizations create the infrastructures that are supporting their employees now during the pandemic and are ready for whatever comes their way post-pandemic. This article lays out the container landscape and connects the dots between some of the technologies that will help as organizations make their digital transformation moves, including using containers. On Security Boulevard is an article that walks readers through what they need to know to choose the right SOC auditor, SOC 2 auditor. For those playing at home, SOC 2 is a regulation specifically designed for service providers storing customer data in the cloud. So it applies to virtually every SaaS provider out there. It focuses on security, availability, processing, integrity, and confidentiality of customer data. For those companies that do offer SaaS apps, which these days can be any organization that has a web-based or mobile app, adhering to SOC 2 regulations is a big deal. As such, finding the right auditor is critical. This article lays out some of the things companies need to consider when choosing a SOC 2 auditor, including understanding what they can and cannot do, and offers up some useful questions to ask potential auditors. It's good stuff to think about no matter what industry you play in. All right, that's it for this edition of the news headlines. Please check back on Monday when we will have a brand new batch for you. Until then, have a great weekend and stay safe.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everybody, welcome back to TechStrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, and I am here now with Mike Jones, who is a security researcher and one of the founding original members of the group Anonymous. Mike, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes and talking with me today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I am just I'm really, really excited. I'm kind of fangirling at the moment because, I've obviously you guys have the group Anonymous has done some really amazing stuff over the last decade or so. And, a lot of it, very public facing. But, it seems like a lot of people actually kind of have a negative connotation when it comes to, hacktivism. But you guys really kind of set out to do good in the world with cybersecurity. So can you kind of tell me a little bit about just kind of some background on Anonymous and how you guys kind of all got together as a collective to try and do some good in the world?
Sure. So there was a group of people that I had just left the military and participated in the Iraq War as an intelligence analyst. some of the things that I was seeing didn't quite sit right with me. And when I left the military, the collective actually started, and we started thinking about how do we expose corruption? How do we free people from oppressive governments and tyranny? And that's how Anonymous kind of came to be and form. And we did some great things, but towards the end, there was some more negative things that happened. But that happens anytime you get a large group of people. You're going to have those small cells that do things that aren't sanctioned, that we don't believe in. And that splintered off, and the FBI got involved, and a lot of people got arrested, and the group kind of silenced a little bit. But they've been moving around a little bit lately, especially during the pandemic, sending videos to China, and during the election, sending videos to Trump, and basically making themselves public again.
All right, great. So, a lot of stuff has happened over the course of the last 12 months or so, not the least of which obviously was the pandemic. So that in and of itself has had a huge impact on cybersecurity and just the way organizations are kind of viewing security in general, in light of the fact that their almost entire workforces are now working remotely and then kind of shuttling back and forth to the office. What have you seen as a security researcher? What have you seen with respect to cybersecurity in general that maybe we haven't really been maybe paying as much attention to over the past, as I said, 12 months or so, because the headlines have been so hyper-focused on securing employees while they work from home, and maybe the increase in ransomware, things like that. So, what's kind of been flying under the radar, if you will?
Well, I think that we're seeing some of that effect from flying under the radar with SolarWinds, some of that activity. But the biggest thing during the pandemic was a lot of the street criminals and organized crime groups that operated in the street, moved things back and forth physically, didn't have that capability anymore. So we started seeing a lot of those organized crime groups turn to the internet, phishing campaigns, more complex campaigns, and the cybercrime went up about 200% within the first couple of months. I was doing a talk for the London Met Police and was discussing with them, the numbers of cybercrime and how it was increasing during the pandemic, and it was just enormously high.
Yeah, and now London is going into lockdown again because of this new strain of COVID. I expect we're going to continue to see an increase in the amount of cyber criminal activity that's going on out there, as we see more organizations or more countries actually kind of throttling back their efforts to open up and actually kind of, shelter in place more. What are some of the things that you're seeing then, more specifically with regards to this cyber criminal activity? Are there, you mentioned phishing, but are there other things that you've seen? Related to, Bitcoin or crypto mining or anything like that? I mean, what's going on out there?
Before the pandemic started, the crypto mining started to increase. During the pandemic, a lot of countries, a lot of individuals were hurting for cash, and businesses had to shut down. So you saw a lot of people trying to steal Bitcoin. I actually had a request from overseas from a criminal who wanted me to break into somebody else's Bitcoin wallet. And, I get that all the time. Can you do this for me? But I see an increase in that because, again, shops are shutting down and the physical means of gaining income are disappearing. And that's every country. And the ransomware is getting out of hand too. The ransomware, we just had an attack here locally to an entire school district. And they actually had one before that with a hospital system that actually caused someone's life. So we're seeing more ransomware on the uptick because of, the lack of cash. The economy is really hurting right now.
So in your position as a security researcher and interfacing and working with a lot of different agencies worldwide, are there certain areas where you're seeing maybe even a higher increase in cyber crime, maybe more than others? Are there certain hotspots, if you will?
Well, I think we're starting to see again with SolarWinds that the hotspot is here. and it's cross-organization, cross-agency. And there's a lot to that attack that I think that we haven't found out yet. And I think there's going to be effects down the road that we'll never find out about because of national security. But it was an interesting way that they took advantage of the government networks. And I think we're going to see a lot of critical infrastructure like oil and gas, water, the grid. We're going to see a lot of effects from that.
So do you think that it's I agree with you. But do you think that it's actually going to be so overt, if you will, when we do see the effects? I mean, are we talking about maybe like whole power grids going offline for like no particular reason whatsoever, other than the fact that the hack occurred?
No, I don't think it's going to be too overt. I did some work with APT 28 years ago, and the way that they operate isn't overt or, it doesn't pop up in your face. It's very quiet. It's very calculated, and they get what they need. And I think we're seeing that, they've monitored the Treasury emails. So they're getting a lot of data, they're getting a lot of really good intelligence across agencies. So I don't think it's going to be taking down the power grid or anything like that, but I think they're establishing a foothold for sure.
Okay. All right. So we're not on the brink of like cyber war, if you will, where, they take our entire infrastructure offline and we're kind of left to fend for ourselves.
I hope not. So President Obama actually made a point that any kind of attack on our critical infrastructure was considered an act of war.
Right.
And Israel, I think, was the first one to go kinetic with a cyber attack and respond with physical force. So I hope it doesn't get to that point. But again, the future is chaotic right now.
So obviously the SolarWinds hack has gained headlines, and even people who really didn't pay any mind to cybersecurity before, even they're talking about it. So it's big. But do you, I mean, and this one was very unique in the way that the organization did it. Do you expect to see more hacks or more attacks of this ilk moving forward, or do you think that this was kind of a crime of opportunity that was highly successful, if you will?
I think it was calculated, very calculated. Like I said, APT 28 doesn't do things on the fly. They're very strategic about it. And I think the world sees the U.S. kind of in a vulnerable spot right now. The way that the pandemic has taken off, our current political situation, we're at a vulnerable spot and prime targets for any kind of cyber attack.
So the SolarWinds breach occurred with their update to their Orion software, which was actually sent out in March. But Americans being what they are, they don't actually update their software out very often. So I guess I keep hearing that the breach could have been a lot worse, but that's kind of little comfort to those organizations that actually have been hit. But do you expect to see more attacks like this as we go on now that they've seen that this one has been successful in certain ways, and if it can be done once, it can be done again?
Absolutely. The cyber war has been going on for years. It's a silent war. It's not evident to the public eye, but it's something we've been battling for at least 10 years, if not more. And as time goes by and everything gets more digital, it's going to just increase over time.
So what are you thinking is going to be on tap for 2021 in terms of cybersecurity, both good and bad? I mean, obviously, as we get the vaccine, and hopefully that'll start to kind of ease things from the pandemic point of view. But there, to your point, there are going to be some long-lasting effects of what's been happening this year. But so, what are you thinking is going to be happening next year?
I think a lot of the cybersecurity environment is going to depend on what happens with the actual election and turnover of power, as well as the pandemic, how quick people can get back to work and make money, and the current economy. I think we saw with the pandemic, it was a rush trying to get people back to work, and it was a little too early. But they were trying to save the economy. So as that gets better over time, I think we're going to see a decrease maybe in cybercrime, because those criminals that rely on physical means are going to go back to the streets. But as far as the nation state and calculated and strategic attacks, I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg right now. I think that's going to increase over the next year.
Okay. All right. Does any of that have to do with the political climate, you think, between, the transition of power, to your point, but also the relationship that Biden does not have with Putin versus Trump's relationship with Putin? Is that going to make it easier or more difficult?
And that's subjective too. So
yeah.
I think we use Russia a lot as a scapegoat. We use it to launch investigations against other politicians. And it's a silent war, and it's going to continue as long as we keep pointing fingers. And let's be honest. Over the past 20 years, the U.S. does the same thing. We have malware creation labs within the government. We, try to stage coups in other countries. So, it's a balance of power. It's going to continue.
Yeah. I believe me. I answered that question over the weekend. Somebody asked me, well, do you think we do this? And I'm like, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't we? I mean, if we have the power and the technology, we'd be stupid if we didn't. So, I think we're going to see some really interesting times ahead in the next year. Not all of it good, unfortunately, but hopefully 2021 will be a damn sight better than 2020 was. So, Mike, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your expertise. I'd love to have you back on TechStrong TV and get you on the sites as well.
Absolutely. And the podcast is going strong. So
yes, tell me about your podcast.
Okay, so the Haunted Hacker podcast started out as a small idea, and we had like 30 people online. And it's more of a open forum. I have guests on, and then I do live attacks on my own equipment here in the lab. And it's blown up pretty big. It's actually become like a small movement. I woke up one morning and there was a poster with the logo plastered on a wall in Melbourne, Australia.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's starting to catch fire. I just hope it maintains its direction and doesn't go somewhere else. But It's a great forum. People can talk freely, really relaxed. I'm totally against the corporate type environment where people aren't allowed to, take part and share. So it's open speech.
Excellent. Well, Mike, thanks again. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you again.
Yeah, great. All right, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more TechStrong TV coming up, so stay tuned.
Disruption is occurring across every aspect of IT. Open source, cloud services, DevOps, and cloud-native software architectures are democratizing IT and radically transforming how business is done. The old ways of creating software and doing IT are being replaced with agile, flexible, faster, and cheaper methods, benefiting vendors and users alike. Accelerated Strategies Group is out to democratize access of industry expertise and knowledge. We use our expertise and experience to offer insightful, intelligent, useful information in a variety of formats relevant to the IT community: digital events, videos, reports, assessments, workshops, and implementation projects with tech vendors, IT organizations, and business leaders. We widely and openly share our work products, often for free. Analyst reports these days aren't worth more than a graph or chart that tells a story or illustrates a market trend. We work with developers, DevOps teams, cloud architects, security engineers, and transformation leaders most every day, creating and implementing transformational strategies and technologies. We're not just thinkers, we're also doers.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everybody, welcome back to TechStrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm here now with Chad Kenny from Clumio. Hi, Chad. How are you? Great to see you.
You as well. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the ransomware landscape and an offering that you guys just recently announced. But first, can we kind of start by you telling me a little bit about Clumio? I'm not that familiar with the company.
Yeah, so Clumio is a backup as a service offering for the enterprise. We just realized quickly that there was a ton of complexity out there around backup, and we wanted to simplify that with no hardware, no software, and just provide this as a service built natively in the public cloud, and do so by protecting public, private, and SaaS-based clouds that customers have today.
Awesome. Well, we've been hearing a lot about the ugliness of ransomware, especially since the onset of the pandemic, and so many organizations, obviously everybody knows that workers are pretty much completely remote these days. So, but there's been, I think I read something like an 800% increase in ransomware since the start of the pandemic, which blows my mind. I'm not sure if that's the exact amount, but it's way up there. So, what are you guys hearing from your customers? Are you seeing, kind of firsthand some of the the effects of ransomware out there?
Yeah, so many customers are reaching out to us trying to look for solutions to effectively get protected fast. CISA, an organization within the federal government who put out a bunch of alerts recently about public sector, healthcare, government agencies being attacked, but it's really widespread. And the one thing that we've realized quickly is that the paradigm shift of data protection kind of went from kind of protecting from, major outages and the like to now all of a sudden becoming a protection from bad actors and ransomware. And what's happened here that's been an interesting methodology is people have to figure out a way to really protect themselves. Mm-hmm. And the one metric that we've started to see customers, somewhat raise red flags around is this ransomware sits on networks for large periods of time, sometimes 200 plus days. And they look for the methodology of how you're going to get out of this thing. And in many cases, that's the backup solution that they try to compromise so that when they encrypt everything, you can't get back out of it and you have to pay the ransom. And so what CISA's put out and various other organizations have recommended that you create an air gap solution outside of your environment altogether so that you have a copy in the event that you need to restore that data in the event that, let's say, your existing backup solution becomes compromised. Now, the fun part about Clumio is we've always been an air gap solution from the beginning. So we've been helping customers with ransomware kind of from the get-go. But there's, people have older solutions on-prem that they still have to kind of use over time.
Yeah. I'm having nightmares about tape backup as you're talking. I'm like, oh my God, are we going back to tape? But no. I hope not. I sure hope not. But so you guys have a new offering called Ransom Protect that is basically aimed at helping organizations have that backup and kind of alleviate their ransomware woes, if you will.
Yeah, so if you kind of think about what most enterprises have today, they have and I call it the boat anchor of a backup solution, but they have an older solution they probably have bought. It's got long retention on it, and they can't just wholesale swap the thing out overnight for a cloud backup solution, which many enterprises are looking towards, especially because of the air gap capabilities. So what we realized is our existing offering that we had out there was really meant to replace an existing backup solution. And what we realized is that most people are still depreciating their old backup solution. They couldn't just go swap it out. And so we wanted to create an offering, we call it Ransom Protect, that allows you to augment an existing backup solution. It has a lower retention rate so that you hold this data now outside of your environment in an air gap solution held natively in the public cloud. And the value that you get is that we own the security. Many people realize that if it's on your network and if your admins have access to it, the hackers will find a way to get into that thing and either shut it off or compromise it or encrypt it. There's no access to any of the infrastructure to the end user. They only have access to the front end GUI, and we don't even have a delete button to actually delete the data. And we provide a lot of security mechanisms and certifications and compliance for ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 1, and HIPAA and HITRUST and various other ones that we're working on that put the onus on security on us. And we do quarterly penetration tests to ensure that we're living up to those agreements, which most enterprises don't have the time to go do and secure their environment. And so this offering allows them to get protected fast and not have to go replace their entire backup infrastructure or go buy an entire new set of things to put it in an air gap site.
Gotcha. So when you're talking to your customers or potential customers just kind of out there, what exactly do you see as kind of the level of understanding about ransomware and how it operates with, folks who maybe aren't so much into the tech or security space, and they're just really looking to make sure that their data is secure. I mean, is there a lot of education that you guys have to do?
I'd say the good news is at some levels, the awareness is high. So that's nice. And so people know that this thing exists and this is a problem. There's really two separate methodologies. There's one that's prevention. So there's a lot of security companies kind of educating companies around how you try to prevent this with, various different security heuristics to identify that this may be occurring on the network before it happens. But then they always realize that at some level, they kind of need that insurance policy no matter what to ensure that if they do get attacked and they get slipped by the prevention mechanism they put in place, that they do have that kind of fail-safe solution to be able to play with. And this has been a pretty tough one for people to handle in the past. You usually had to buy an entirely new system and put it in an entirely new site and then get network guys to try to figure out how they're going to manage that. And so I think that what customers are looking for these days is simplicity, one, because digital transformation has expedited substantially with COVID. You don't have people in offices to do things anymore. Secondarily, they want to consolidate many of those solutions into cloud native offerings or SaaS-based offerings. I see more and more enterprises these days having a SaaS first methodology that says, I don't want to have to actually take this thing and figure out how I'm going to do it in the public cloud. Just give it to me as a service. And so I think pairing all of those things together, this is really where we've positioned ourselves well to ensure that we satisfy customer demands, but also do it in a way that helps them across all their environments. This solution goes across on-prem VMware, cloud native solutions with AWS, EBS, RDS, EC2, and then Microsoft 365 solutions, which are kind of the core use cases for customers today. And we'll continue to expand this as time goes on.
Awesome. So Ransom Protect is available now. And what do folks need to do to kind of learn more about it or get started?
Yeah. So first off, I'd throw out there that this is 50% of the cost of what you'll find in the market today. So it's incredibly cost optimized. And we can quote this out. It's a 30-day retention available today. And it takes about 15 minutes to set up. You get on there, you say what you want to protect. It inventories and discovers everything. And lo and behold, you're off protecting data into the public cloud versus having to manage it in your own environment. And so reach out to us today. We have a lot of great content for you to review, blog posts, data sheets, as well as a product page for Ransom Protect on Clumio.com.
Awesome. Well, Chad, thank you so much for walking me through it. I'm sure that this is something that the market is going to really glom onto, especially as it doesn't look like ransomware is going away anytime soon. So thanks again. I really do appreciate your time, and I wish you best of luck. And hopefully we can have you guys back on TechStrong TV another time. We can talk a little bit more about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time. Take care.
All right, great. All right, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more TechStrong TV coming up, so stay tuned. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm here now with the webinars preview for Thursday, January 7th. As I tell you every single time, we have a great number of webinars on DevOps.com, Container Journal, and Security Boulevard. Lots of great topics, lots of great speakers, but I want to let you know about 3 that are happening very soon so that you can mark your calendar and hopefully attend. The first webinar is happening Tuesday, January 12th at 11 a.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. It is called 5 Kubernetes Reliability Tips and Tricks to Avoid Downtime, and it's sponsored by Fairwinds. Reliability in Kubernetes can be difficult to achieve, but it equates to stability, streamlined development and operations, and a better user experience. So many factors need to be considered when building a stable and reliable Kubernetes cluster, including the possible need for application changes and changes to cluster configurations. So this webinar will offer up some knowledge on setting resource requests and limits, auto-scaling pods using a metric that represents application load, using liveness and readiness probes, and software solutions for monitoring and enforcing best practices. All right, the next webinar I want to let you know about is also happening Tuesday, January 12th. This one is at 1 p.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. It's called Monitoring Serverless Applications with Datadog. This webinar focuses on how Datadog's platform can help monitoring serverless applications with AWS Lambda, including how to set up a Twitter bot that makes API calls with Node.js, deploying serverless applications, and what observability looks like with less infrastructure. Again, that one is happening Tuesday, January 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern. The final webinar today I want to let you know about is called Role-Based Access Controls for SSH and Kubernetes Access with Teleport. It's happening Tuesday, January 12th. I see a trend here. Tuesday, January 12th at 3 p.m. Eastern. This one is sponsored by Teleport. This webinar takes a look at the Teleport technology and helping enterprises manage access to their SSH and Kubernetes resources via role-based access controls. With Teleport, employees are able to provide granular access controls to developers based on the access they need and when they need it. This makes it possible for them to maintain secure access without getting in the way of their developers' daily operations. This webinar also will demonstrate how organizations assign access to developers and SREs across environments with the Teleport technology through roles mapped from enterprises, identity providers, or SSOs. Good stuff if you are dealing with security issues in Kubernetes and Kubernetes access. Definitely want to check out this webinar. All right, that's all the webinars that I have for you today. Please check back on Monday. I'll have a fresh batch for you. Until then, have a great weekend and please stay safe. All right, next up is Analyst Corner. As always, we've got Mitch Ashley talking about 2021 and that inseparable connection between business and technology strategies in the age of digital transformation. Good stuff. Let's give this one a listen.
It's been a while since I've done one of these recordings. I've recorded a lot of conversations with different individuals, different companies leading up through the end of 2020. And frankly, I did that just when I was busy, but two really cool companies, really interesting people, some great things are happening in our industry. And with all the, let's say, wonky events of 2020, really wanted to bring you some valuable, good information. My commentary, I appreciate you listening to that too, but make sure you got to hear some really good stories from different folks, whether it was the Axlos team or Perforce or any number of organizations that I had a chance to talk with in the latter part of 2020. I don't know if you've noticed this. It seems maybe it's my own made-up version of things, but it seems like you don't see very many reviews of 2020, the top 10, the best of, the looking back. I think for whatever your reason is, whether it's COVID, health issues, lockdown, economy, politics, whatever. I think there's so many reasons for us to kind of just say, let's look past that and look forward. And I totally agree with looking forward. And sometimes it's well worth, taking a chance to look backwards too, and just review and see what we can learn from that. Hopefully, I think one of the things that is a takeaway is, even with tragedy as well as difficulties around the economy or challenges for businesses, we saw tremendous growth in the acceleration of digital technology project, digital transformation projects, digital strategies. We saw tremendous growth in the use of the cloud. Those are all data that you can back that up with from research that Accelerated Strategies did. We saw tremendous adoption of DevOps and emphasis of that, but also DevOps and Agile principles, techniques, things like daily stand-ups, multifunction, cross-functional teams, working on smaller components, delivering things faster. Lots of things that have really influenced our world. And if you've listened to much of what I've said or written, that I'm not a believer in that we'll go back to the way things were in January 2020, and that'll pick up in some date in 2021. You don't go through something and change how you work, change how your business operates, change your strategies and priorities. The whole system has changed. And with that comes some longevity, some momentum that propels you to continue on that path as opposed to reset and going back to exactly where you were. One of our research surveys said that only 14% of people and this is from a DevOps technical audience, but both IC as well as management and leadership levels. So they don't want to go back to an office full time. Maybe they'll go back part time. Most, over half, I think it's close to 54%, something in that order, said they wanted to work either at home or wanted to work at home at least 3, if not 5 days a week. So I think, this is the world that we've created, and this is the world we'll continue to live into. As I think about 2021, one of the events that we have coming up with the MediaOps team is Predict 2021. That's happening on January 21st and 22nd. You can go to mediaopevents.com/predict 2021 and take a look at that and sign up. That information about the event is, coming out more and more every day. And I'll be talking at that virtual event, as well as leading a panel on AI observability and who knows, maybe a few other things too. But it's looking forward, how we kind of look into what's happening and going to happen in 2021 and beyond. And one of the things that I've been working on is recently I'm taking on some new responsibilities, working with the MediaOps team around the technology platforms, the delivery, content management, distribution, all kinds of things that, I just love keeping my hands in the practical world, whether I'm doing research or doing analysis work or creating products. And I say this is not to brag, this is kind of what I've done off and on in my career. I've kind of flipped back and forth between let me lead IT or be a CIO or be a product or play some kind of role in an IT organization, technology organization, as well as be a CTO, CEO, run some aspect of a product company, a SaaS service, security products, multiple. So I kind of have this dual personality. And it's because I'm a believer in, I don't like to ask people to do things I've not done myself. Now, I can't do everything myself, but I like to take a stab at it. When we're getting into mobile development and development for watch applications, I was one of the founders of a company called Vozzle that was doing voice annotation of media documents, converting that from voice to text and putting location information into it. So, I wasn't writing the code for the application, but, I want to know something about mobile apps. I want to know something about writing app for your watch. What's that like? So I tend to put my fingers and toes in the water and just do a little bit to get enough exposure to have an idea. Oh, this is like this, but it's different in these ways. And that's kind of what I'm doing in the media world now, along with continuing to do what I love doing with Accelerated Strategies Group and leading the analyst work that we're doing. Again, it's because I get to apply DevOps, I get to apply Agile, I get to see it work amongst an organization and team. And I guess this is my third transition, if you will, into a DevOps environment. The first one was nobody'd heard of it. Grab Gene Kim's book and we do a book study and figure out what is this stuff. I think it was about 2013 or so. To helping an existing team adopt it, to now working with an organization that already understands DevOps, but maybe take it to the next level. So I'm thinking about Predict 2021 and some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. And a passion of mine is connecting the dots from the work that the technology organization does to the business, value to the business, impact to the business, value to the customer, and in support of strategies, particularly on digital transformation, and vice versa, pulling back the other way. Because when you've played roles on different parts of that line, along that curve, that arc, if you will, you begin to understand where the translation is lost, where the, let's say the understanding of the why of we're doing something inside of a software team or IT organization or product organization, of am I really doing something that's meaningful to the business, going to make an impact? And now in this world that we're in today, things accelerate. We're looking for impact in market today, tomorrow, next week, next month, not next quarter, next year. We're talking very fast impact. We need to be nimble as well as resilient to respond to, but also, take offensive measures to go after things to help the business succeed, whether that's an economic recovery or, taking advantage of opportunities in the market that we see, strategies that we have. So part of what I'll be talking about at Predict 2021, one of the predictions or trends is the inseparability of business and technology strategy. How many boardrooms are talking about their technology strategy? A lot more today, I can tell you that, than maybe 5 years ago. IT technology was seen as a operational capability. We need billing, we need manufacturing systems, inventory systems, financials, HR, collaboration, whatever it might be. But, we didn't think about that as this is going to not just turn the needle, but give us a competitive edge, a strategic advantage. Or now we're at the point of building business strategies around the technology strategy or vice versa that will support what we want to do. So that drives all the way down to really thinking about technology decisions and how they specifically painting that line of sight, connecting the dots between we are implementing DevOps not because there's a great site called DevOps.com, and there is, not because it's the trend and a lot of people are doing it. That is happening. But there are some things that our business is asking us to do. Yes, we want to get better at how we deliver software and create software. And there's a lot of great things in adopting DevOps and Agile and CI/CD and workflows, pipelines. But there's a reason for all of that. And it's not just for our own benefit, our own, because we believe it's useful and important, or maybe sometimes entertainment, if that's a way to look at it. But there better be an outcome out of this, because if we're asking the organization to make a transformation in how it works and how we deliver software, there's got to be a really good why behind it. Why go through all that effort if it's just sort of the next fad, right? When we do those things, I remember one point in my career, somebody said, this too shall pass. 6 months, there'll be another program. So just hang tight. Don't get too engaged in this thing, because it'll be something else. Sort of a cynical view, but in that organization, it really was true. I was like, yeah, really? Okay, actually, you're right, because there is something new. And now we're all supposed to, student body left, student body right, and go after the next big thing. But that, if we really think about our organizations, our businesses are tying their business strategy to the delivery on a technology strategy, that really elevates you. You want a seat at the table in the boardroom. You want a seat at the table in the executive team. There's one thing to ask for it. There's another thing to say you're there because you need to be, because we're counting on you, and we're counting on you delivering. We know it's not easy. If it was easy, we would have done it. And if it was easy, we could hire anybody to. We're asking you, CIO or CTO or head of IT, VP of engineering, software product architect, whatever those kind of roles are that you're playing in helping your organization transform how you deliver software. So think about that. It's putting it on the line, and you are making commitments to deliver for the organization. Maybe that's scary for some folks. Like, I don't know how we get there. Maybe we have to figure that out as we go, as well as the plan of what we have to get there. But you know what? That means you're doing something meaningful. The organization's counting on you, and you're doing more than just keeping the lights on. Lights are important, but lights don't bring in revenue. It helps, but it doesn't give you that competitive or strategic advantage. So as you're crafting your plans, maybe you already have made good headway into that. Maybe you're just getting started because you're getting past the end of 2020 and into 2021. Make that connection. How is your technology strategy? How is your software development capability? How are the systems, applications, products, and services that you are creating or have created, how are they making a meaningful outcome for the business, right? And it can be revenue, but it can be a lot more than that. It can be adding a strategic advantage in marketplace that helps you compete more effectively. It can be responding to economic challenges, rebuilding supply chains, maybe in much different ways than we had in place just 6 or 9 months ago. Why rebuild it the way it was built 5 or 10 years ago? Let's build it for the business we have today and the business we're going to have tomorrow, not what we've had in the past. So I hope you'll join me on Predict 2021. And of course, I'm just one of many, many, many great speakers that'll be part of that event. And there's a whole series of virtual conferences that MediaOps is putting on a number of different topics that you may find enjoyable too. So I wish you the best in 2021. And I know there are still many, many challenges that we face, both in our personal lives and in our public health, personal health, families. A good friend of mine just lost her mother, and another friend of mine is in the process of saying goodbye to a brother. That's the world we're living. So let's give each other a little more compassion and understanding because of that. And let's also think strategically, aggressively, and optimistically about what we can do in 2021 and beyond. So thanks for listening today. Wish you the best.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
All right, that wraps up another edition of TechStrong. Everybody enjoyed today's broadcast. We had so many great interviews. I am really looking forward to Monday's broadcast. We'll have another just amazing lineup for you. So I want everybody to join me on Monday. But until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Please stay safe, and we will see you on Monday.